In today's video, let's see how to crochet this light airy summer top with a simple construction that's perfect for beginners. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to DIY Crafts. For this project, I am using 2 bundles of Karen cotton cakes. Each one is 250 grams, so total 500 grams. This one is a weight for cotton blend yarn with 60% cotton and 40% acrylic, and along with a crochet hook of 3.5 mm. You can use your favorite yarn along with its suitable hook size. However, for this top, we are following the measurements instead of count. So now let's begin. Now let's start by making a simple slip knot, and then we are going to start making a foundation chain. So here we have to consider the first measurement, that is the length of the top. You can get it by measuring the length from your shoulder till your waist. If you want, you can extend it until your hip length. For me, this length has come to 20 inches. And now I have to make the foundation chain for 40 inches, which is nothing but twice the length of the top. Okay, so here I have the top length of 20 inches, and hence my foundation chain should measure up to 40 inches. So based on this calculation, you can decide how much of the foundation chain you wanted for your top. Once you have completed the foundation chain of required measurements, then check for the count of the chains. So this chain should be a 3 multiple plus 1 additional chain, and that will give you a perfect granny stripe. So if there is 1 or 2 stitches or 2 chains difference, you can just add up to those 2 chains extra. That doesn't make much of a difference. So for my project, I have made 151 chains. And now to mark the end of the foundation chain, I am putting a stitch marker on my 151st chain. Now let's start making the first row. Begin with chain 3, which we count as the first DC in the row 1. And if you want, you can just put a stitch marker on top of that chain. Now we are going to make a DC increase in this 151st chain. So insert and drop a loop. That's the first DC, and into the same stitch we are going to make another DC. So these 3 stitches together, we call it as a granny cluster. Now we are going to skip the next 2 stitches, and in the later stitch we are going to make 3 more double crochet stitches in the same stitch. So begin with a yarn over, insert the hook and drop a loop. Now you'll have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, bring it out of the first 2 loops, again yarn over and bring it out of the next 2 loops. So that's a DC, and we have to make 2 more DCs into the same stitch. So that will make a granny cluster. So granny cluster is nothing but a set of 3 double crochet stitches all worked into the same stitch. That is called as a granny cluster. So here the set of 3 DCs worked into the same stitch. So that's a second granny cluster. Again, we have to skip the next 2 chains, and in the later chain we are going to make another granny cluster. So here the repetition or the pattern will be the same thing. We will make 1 granny cluster, skip the next 2 chains, and then we'll do another granny cluster and skip the 2 chains, and we are going to repeat the same pattern until the end of the foundation chain. So the pattern looks like a cluster, a gap, cluster, a gap, and a cluster, and this pattern will look throughout the foundation chain in the same way. So here we have reached the end of the foundation chain. So we are making the last cluster, skip the next 2 chains, and in the last chain we are making the last granny cluster, which is nothing but 3 double crochet stitches worked into the same stitch. So if you observe the first row, it is going to start with a cluster and it has ended with a cluster, and you can gently stretch it out a little bit to make the pattern even more settled and nice. So this is the end of the first row. Now let's start making the second row. Before that, let's understand how the granny stripe pattern works. So this is a granny cluster, and on top of it there should be a gap, and on top of a gap there should be a granny cluster. So which means for the second row we have to make one granny cluster in each of the gaps on top of the first row. So as we have ended the first row with a cluster, we have to start the second row with a gap. First, let's start by making a chain 3, and you will turn your work from the right hand side to the left hand side. So once you have turned the work, this is how the pattern looks. And now on top of a granny cluster we have to have a gap. So the next gap, insert and we'll make a granny cluster. So that's 1, 2 and 3. Now if you observe the first, once we done it, you will see a gap on top of the previous granny cluster, and in the gap we have made a granny cluster. So on top of a gap we will see a granny cluster. Again leave the next cluster, and into the next gap make another granny cluster. I hope it is clear and I'm not confusing you. If you don't understand, just rewatch the video so that you will understand it better. So on top of a gap we'll see a cluster, and on top of a cluster we'll see a gap. So keep on doing the granny clusters throughout the row in each and every gap until the end of the row, and I will show you how to close the second row by the end of this one. So here I'm making the last granny cluster in the last gap of the first row. So now we have reached the end of the second row. Now if you see, we have a stitch marker on top of the first stitch. So make 1 DC on top of that last stitch to make the last gap visible. So in the second row, it will start with a gap and it will end with a gap. So remember, alternative rows will have the similar pattern. For the third row, again begin with chain 3, and if you are able to identify the first stitch, well and good. If not, just take out the stitch marker and put that in the third chain of this height chain, and then you will turn your work. If you are able to identify the third chain without any stitch marker, then you don't have to put it. So after turning the work into the first gap, make 2 double crochet stitches. That is a double crochet increase in the first gap. So this chain 3 and 2 DC will consider as a first cluster in your third row. And now we are going to repeat the same thing, like making a granny cluster in each and every gap in between the clusters in the previous row. So again for the fourth row we will be repeating the second row, and we will continue this pattern until the desired length. So here is my work after completing 25 rows. I have just made a final knot and closed the work, and this one gave me a long rectangle, and I'm folding this rectangle in half according to the lengthwise. So taking both the sides and I'm folding it, and now I will show you how to decide how many rows of work you have to do. So for that we need to take a second measurement, which is the chest circumference, and for that measurement we have to divide it by 4. So if you see here, the rectangle is 10 inches in width. So this measurement have come to me by dividing the number 40. So for my measurement, the chest circumference is 40. So 40 divided by 4 gave me 10. Likewise, you can check your measurement and divide it by 4, and according to that we have to make a number of rows that is required for your top. So if you wanted a baggy fit, you can add additional rows, and if you wanted a perfect fit, just follow the exact measurement. And now once I have folded this in half, you can check the measurement according to the length. It has given me 20 inches. So basically the total rectangle here is 40 inches by 10 inches, and I have made 2 rectangles of the same measurement and same size. So 2 rectangles, each one is 40 inches in length and 10 inches in width. Now we have folded these 2 rectangles and we are putting them one next to each other. So let me just put a picture for better understanding. So this is the simple construction. This is the 2 rectangles. The folding should be on top and the other part should be at the bottom. Now we are going to take the remaining 2 measurements, that is the neck depth and the armhole depth. So once you have both the rectangles one next to each other, take your measuring tape and measure approximately 8 inches at the front neck. So from top till the 8 inches, you can put a mark on your first rectangle on the front panel and the other rectangle also on the front panel. Hold these two together and put a stitch marker to mark the neck depth at the front, and the same 8 inches depth you have to mark on the back side of the rectangles as well. So this one will become the front and back neck of your top. So identify the same two gaps and put a stitch marker. So this both gives the neck opening for the top. Now take the armhole depth for the right hand and the left hand as well. So now for the armhole depth, I am taking approximately 8.5 to 9 inches, and then I am putting again another stitch marker. So that is 8 inches. You can put it approximately like 8.5 inches. If you wanted a tighter fit, then you can go for 7 inches also. So here I have secured the armhole depth on my right hand panel or the right side rectangle. So that's the armhole for the right hand. And now go to the other side of the second rectangle, and similar to the left side, the other side, we have to measure approximately 8 inches, identify the stitch, and then put a stitch marker connecting these both rectangles on the other side. So once you have put all the stitch markers, now the final step is attaching both the panels depending upon the stitch markers. So now we have to attach both these rectangles, both the panels of the first rectangle, starting from the bottom till the stitch marker point. So take your tapestry needle and take a long piece of yarn which is approximately triple the measurement of the length. Okay, now take this additional yarn piece and attach it, put it into your tapestry needle. Now I am going to insert this tapestry needle at the bottom of the project where I have to attach these two rectangles. So insert it into the bottom loops of both the panels and pull the thread out, leaving a small tail end at the start. And these two tail ends, the tail end at the beginning and the working end, I am just making a couple of knots to secure the starting of joint. Now once these two panels are joined at the starting point, put this onto your left hand side for easy sewing. Now I am going to sew both these parts together until the stitch marker point starting from the bottom part. So I am just using a one-way join method starting from the front and moving your tapestry needle towards the back side. Now keep on sewing both the panels with each other in only one direction, that is from front to back, and every time make sure you are putting your needle through both the panels. And once 4 to 5 inches are joined, I am just making a simple knot to secure the joint at intermediate levels so that we can avoid any accidents and also to have a cleaner finish. So for that we are repeating to make one simple knot after every 4 to 5 inches of join, and we will continue this until we have reached the stitch marker. And now we will repeat the same thing, that is to attach the panels on all the other three sides as well. So now the first part where we have joined until the stitch marker, once it is done, we'll make a final second knot to secure the thread, and then we'll trim the thread, leaving a small tail end of 4 to 5 inches. And then with the help of a tapestry needle, we will hide all the tail ends from the rectangles and the tail ends from this thread which we are using to attach the panels. All the tail ends we have to weave them inside. So we will repeat the same thing on the other tail ends as well throughout the project. And once all the sides are attached, your granny stripe summer top will be ready to flaunt. If you want, you can add a border to it or just wear as it is. I hope you all enjoyed watching this tutorial. Do give this pattern a try and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. The written pattern is given in the description. Do check it out. Don't forget to share your work to me on Instagram. See you all in the next video. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, share it and subscribe to DIY Crafts.